So, friends, colleagues, thank you so much for joining this meeting. My name's Edward Davey. I'm the co-director of the World Resources Institute in the UK, and I'm also International Engagement Director for the Food and Land Use Coalition, which is a coalition of 9 global organisations working to make a political and economic case for food systems reform. I also serve as an advisor to the COP26 Presidency on Nature and to the UN Food Systems Summit. And in the last 8 months, as Martin will describe momentarily, the UN Food Systems Summit has embarked on a really quite remarkable global project of Food Systems Summit dialogues. These are dialogues classified in 2 broad categories. There's member state dialogues, which are led by nations, and Ananda is kindly going to talk us through what's happening in the UK on that front. But there's also another category of dialogues, which are so-called independent dialogues. And one of the great virtues of the Food Systems Summit is it's effectively given everyone a chance to convene a dialogue in a city or a region or across a sector or on an issue that they think is important to the food system. And as someone who was born in London and who's lived the first 40 years of their life in London, I felt it would be an interesting and valuable exercise to try to convene an independent London Food Systems Summit dialogue. There's a whole methodology by which to do that. We submitted the request to do one to the UN Food Systems Summit dialogue process. We were accepted. And so today's event is really meant just to mark the beginning of the Food Systems Summit dialogue process in London. This will then lead to a series of meetings over the coming few months, and with the intention of London making a formal contribution to the UK dialogue process, Ananda, and also to the mayor stepping up within the UN summit process to explain his vision for food systems reform aligned with the objectives of the Food Systems Summit on behalf of the City of London. So that's roughly where we've got to, and we were very grateful for the opportunity to launch this process at London Climate Action Week as part of a series of events this week linked to the theme of the London Climate Action Week on the road to COP26. We're very privileged to have with us 3 opening speakers, Dr. Martin Frick, who with Agnes Kalibata is responsible for running the UN Food Systems Summit. And Martin is kindly going to give us a 5-10 minute overview of the UN Food Systems Summit, what it's about, what it's trying to do. Once we've heard from Martin, and thank you very much, Martin, for taking the time, we're going to pass to Ananda Guha, who is kindly going to talk through, on behalf of the UK government, what the UK national dialogue process looks like and what it's seeking to achieve. And Ananda, thank you very much for taking the time. And then we're going to hear from Ruth Westcott, who is a fantastic leader in the sector of London and food and climate and action, who's going to give us a sense of some of the issues at play in London and what organisations are trying to do to address them. We're incredibly grateful, Ruth, to you for taking the time to give us your thoughts. So those 3 sets of remarks will probably take us to around 10:40 or so. And in the last few minutes of the hour, we'll be very happy to hear questions and thoughts from those of you who've also been kind enough to join. Sadiq Khan sent his apologies. I genuinely believe that he wanted to attend. We spoke quite a lot with his officials, but he's a busy man and he is doing quite a lot this week, including for London Climate Action Week. But one of the virtues of having convened this meeting, I think, is it's provided his officials who are working hard on food policy in the GLA a chance to think about how what they're doing could potentially shine on the global stage. So we're in touch with them. We also had apologies from the fantastic group of people that represent the London Food Board, including Claire Pritchard, who had a prior commitment today, but who was really, really keen to attend and who's also committed to taking forward this process within the London Food Board. So with that, I'm going to stop. I'm very open to chat, and questions through the hour. But without further ado, please over to you, Martin, and thank you again for joining.
Well, thank you very much, and everybody. Let me start as a German national, congratulating you to the match yesterday in Wembley, as hard as it is. Now, let's speak about this summit. It's the first food systems summit that the UN is ever convening. And a food systems summit is a very different beast than the food summits that we had in previous years, basically focusing on issues such as the spike in food prices or an acute famine. A food systems summit acknowledged the systemic importance of food, the central role that food plays in about anything and everything that matters for human beings. If we look at it from the equity and social justice side, it's one of these absurdities of our planet that more than 80% of the world's hungry people are actually food producer. These are people who should be sitting at the source, but they're suffering hunger. We have 3 billion, not million, but billion people worldwide who have not access to the nutritious food they would need to lead a healthy and prosperous life. 3 billion, not because the food is not available, but it is not affordable. If we are looking at jobs, the food sector is the biggest employer on this planet, and yet also host to the worst job of this planet. And if you just ask for some delivery or you look behind the scenes of any given restaurant, you will see how bad these jobs are. In the current COVID pandemic, the hotspots of outbreaks were, for a reason, meat processing industry quite often, or fruit pickers where migrant workers work under really bad working conditions. But if you look at it from a perspective of planetary boundaries, our food production, distribution, consumption, and even wasting system is one of the biggest driver of our planetary crisis, really. Nothing is more responsible for deforestation. Nothing uses more fresh water. Nothing kills more biodiversity. And in terms of climate change, we have now numbers of what we have guessed for a long time. FAO says 1/3 of the global emissions stem from food systems. Some voices would even say it's closer to 40% if you really factor everything in that is our food systems. So obviously this system is not working. How do you change that? One of the desires of the Food System Summit is to change the global narrative. And that is the most powerful thing I think we can do. Because in terms of new regulations, new norms, new UN agreements, we know how hard and cumbersome this is to achieve. But what this summit has been trying to achieve is, in a deeply decentralized structure, have people talking about food in their national, in their regional, and even in their local context. And this model is quite interesting because it combines a UN global debate with national and local debates that really have the potential to change the way we are dealing with our food systems. I give you an example. Nepal is a small country, of course. Nepal has been running not less than 14 national dialogues in different provinces, really looking at all the complexities that often you can only solve on a local level. Now here in the London dialogue, the food consumption of London, I have no idea about the numbers, but it must be absolutely enormous. If a shift is happening in a major city like London, it affects an entire system around that. If we are able to localize the food system, if we are able to build a stronger emotional connection of people between the food they are consuming and the origins of it, if we value our food higher and waste less, there is really something that can be substantially changed. Not least on the political side. As we know from the times when the climate negotiations got really stuck, cities were still driving the agenda. And that is for a reason. Cities have the most progressive population, have the highest rate of education, and are really global trendsetter. And in the cities, and particularly the young educated people, give you a good feeling about the new trends to come. And I think it's very encouraging to see how many urban young folks are actually going into food production one way or another, going into urban gardening, are interested in their nutrition, paying attention and thought to what they eat, are getting active. And so we hope with this, really by the time thousands of little incubators all over the planet, we can work from both sides, from the top down with the leaders, debates, heads of states and governments in September, but also from the bottom up by so many communities who are really reflecting and also communicating the need to transform food systems via the constituencies to the political decision makers.